Joan of Arc became a hero to the French in the 15th century during the Hundred Years' War. A peasant girl who received heavenly voices and visions, she believed she had a mission to overthrow the English and put Charles VII on the throne. It's said she convinced Charles to place her at the head of his armies by revealing things to him in private only the angels could have told her. Her victories at Orleans and elsewhere gave Charles the crown he wanted. Captured by pro-English nobles and abandoned by the king, she was handed over to England and tried for witchcraft, heresy, and cross-dressing. She was convicted and burned at the stake, a death that understandably terrified her. It's said that as she was dying, she cried out to nearby clergymen to lift up a crucifix. "Hold the cross high," she said, "so I can see it through the flames." I was reminded of those words yesterday as I watched Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris burning. When St. Joan died in 1431, she was only 19, but the cathedral had already been standing for nearly 170 years. It has stood as a symbol of the nation, of its civilization, and of its God from the 13th century on. It has withstood every war and disaster that has fallen on the great city. But while its iconic towers remain and precious artwork and relics have been saved, the fire destroyed much of the interior. The cause of the blaze is not yet known, and investigators say they have found no sign of arson and are treating it as an accident, possibly connected to construction work being done at the site. But the strange silence that has fallen over the press, the sudden unwillingness to speculate or even question authorities about their investigation, and especially the self-imposed censorship of any mention of the plague of church arsons and desecrations that has fallen on France during Lent this year, that silence, that censorship speaks more than words about what everyone is thinking and what everyone fears. I couldn't watch the beautiful structure burn from within without sensing I was looking at a symbol of what has happened not just to France, but to Europe, and maybe to Western civilization as a whole. Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show.
I feel hunky-dunky, life is tickety-boo. Birds are winging, also singing hunky-dunky-doo. Ship-shaped, ipsy-topsy, the world is zippity-zing. It's a wonderful day, hurrah, hooray! It makes me want to sing. Oh, hurrah, hooray! Oh, hooray, hurrah!
All right, I got a lot of business to take care of right up the top. I'm going to give you a speech at 7 p.m. at Texas A&M University. It's the latest stop on my YAF campus tour. Michael Knowles, unfortunately, will be there with me, although I plan to use him as a human shield if anyone should attack me. And if you're in town, come on out, and we would love to, we both love to see you. And just leave your super soakers at home. I would appreciate it. We also have a new sponsor, Roman.com/Klavan. Roman.com. You know, I almost didn't take this sponsor. When they showed it to me, I thought, underneath all the kidding around, I'm kind of a dignified guy, and I didn't want to talk about erectile dysfunction on the show, And then I thought, that's just wrong, because this is something that emperors have been looking for, a cure for this forever. And now through the glory of science, it's actually available, but nobody gets it because they're embarrassed. They don't want to go to the doctor. They don't want to stand online at the pharmacy and have some girls shout over the loudspeaker, who ordered the ED medicine? Nobody wants to do that. Go to Roman.com. Roman is a one-stop shop where you can chat with a licensed U.S. physician who can treat ED, and if it's safe and appropriate, they will ship the medication right to your door. No waiting rooms, no awkward face-to-face conversations. With Roman, they handle everything discreetly online, and all you have to do is visit GetRoman.com/Klavan. That's GetRoman.com/Klavan. You complete an online visit, chat with the doctor, and if the doctor decides it's appropriate and safe, they will ship the genuine medication right to your door in discreet, unmarked packaging. That is GetRoman.com/Klavan. One more time, GetRoman.com/Klavan. Let's do it again just for fun. GetRoman. ROMAN, GetRoman.com/Klavan. And of course, for extra confidence, you want to know, how do you spell Klavan? It's Klavan. And finally, the mailbag is tomorrow. I will be traveling, but the mail will catch up with me. So you want to go to dailywire.com, subscribe for a lousy $10 a month or $100 for the whole year, and then hit the podcast button, hit the Andrew Klavan podcast, hit the little mailbag symbol. You can ask me anything you want about religion, politics, your personal life. All my answers, guaranteed, 100% correct. 100% correct. And they'll change your life. Maybe for the better, maybe not. But we'll find out tomorrow in the mailbag. So I got to tell you about Notre Dame. I loved that cathedral. I must have been to that cathedral at least half a dozen times. Every time I go, I would climb up the towers, the inside towers, these weird 13th century steps, just a very claustrophobic, beautiful climb. You get to the top. It is one of the great views of Paris you'll ever see. In Paris, of course, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. If I had to list one of my 10 favorite scenes in movies, this is absolutely true. If I had to list one of my 10 favorite scenes, maybe one of my 5 favorite scenes, the 1939 version of The Hunchback of Notre Dame. If you've never seen it, the Victor Hugo classic turned to a movie, and of course, much changed for the screen, but it had Charles Laughton giving one of his greatest performances as the bell ringer Quasimodo in Notre Dame Cathedral. It has a wonderful scene where he's in love with the gypsy girl, Esmeralda, played by Maureen O'Hara, when she must have been just a kid. She's so beautiful in it. And they decide they're going to hang her outside the cathedral for witchcraft. And poor Quasimodo, this ugly little bent-over man, is watching from his perch in the tower of Notre Dame, and he swings down on a rope and he sweeps her off the scaffold where they're going to hang her, and he carries her back up into the cathedral, where by law they were not allowed to arrest her. And he holds up her body. She's fainted, and he holds up her body and shouts, "Sanctuary, sanctuary." And it's just one of the great scenes in all movies. Anyway, I was just watching this. I think all of us felt the same way. We were all appalled to see this incredible monument of Western civilization in flames. And you know, I'm watching the coverage, and I was just kind of appalled. I mean, if there was any other kind of disaster, a plane crash, take a plane crash, what do? They follow the investigators around. They ask them, what have you learned? What have you seen? They speculate. They get on the air, and they say, you know, like, well, it's funny. It drifted out this way, and the weather was this, and people said they saw this. You see this all the time. Instead, we got stuff like this. These are 2 examples from Fox. Shepard Smith, have I got that? Yeah. Was interviewing a right-wing media commentator in France, Philippe Carcenti. And here's the exchange between them.
It's a big shock. I mean, this church was there for more than 850 years. Even the Nazis didn't dare to destroy it. And you need to know that for the past years, we had churches desecrated each and every week in France, all over France. So, of course, you will hear the story about the political correctness, which will tell you that it's probably an accident.
Sir, we're not going to speculate here of the cause of something which we don't know. If you have observations or you know something, we would love to hear it.
No, I'm just telling you something. What you need to be ready.
No, sir, we're not doing that here. Not now. Okay. Not on my watch.
The not on my watch is the giveaway to the self-righteousness, the fact that this is a virtuous thing that he's doing by cutting this guy off, who really, and this is not about speculating about the cause of the fire. Right now, as I said, they're saying it's probably an accident. They're seeing no signs of arson. But what is Shep Smith cutting out? He's cutting out the context the guy's trying to put it into. And Neil Cavuto, usually one of the most sensible and straightforward of Fox hosts, maybe this was something that came down from the top, but the absolute self-righteousness in Shep's voice is what really caught me. Not on my watch are you going to talk about the spate of desecrations. It's been going on for a long time, but it has really picked up over Lent this year. And of course, yesterday is the beginning of Holy Week. That's the week that begins with Jesus, where the memory of Jesus entering Jerusalem on Sunday. That's Palm Sunday. And then it ends, of course, with the crucifixion on Good Friday and the resurrection on Easter Sunday. So right at the top of Holy Week, they're not even going to talk about this. I mean, just again, think about a plane crash. Think about any other kind of disaster where they would be talking about this. Maybe not speculating about who did anything or anything like that, but just talking about the context. Neil Cavuto did it too. He was interviewing Bill Donahue, also conservative from the Catholic League.
If it is an accident, it's a monumental tragedy. But forgive me for being suspicious. Just last month, a 17th century church was set on fire in Paris. We've seen tabernacles knocked down. Crosses have been torn down. Statues have been smashed.
We don't know that. We don't know. So if we can avoid what your suspicions might be, I do want to look at what happens now. There was a very pricey rebuilding and renovation effort going on that involved a good deal of Catholic fundraising campaigns. I know in this country and abroad, this renovation was paid for up front. So in other words, all the monies were there. And now I'm wondering how much more the Catholic Church commits to this, or do you think now they first want to get to the bottom of it?
Well, first they have to get to the bottom of it, and they will rebuild it. There's no question about that. And certainly the Catholic Church will come up with the money for it. That's not even a question. But I'm sorry. I mean, when I find out that the Eucharist is being destroyed and excrement is being smeared on crosses,
wait a minute,
this
Bill,
is going on now.
Bill, I love you, Bill, but we cannot make conjectures about this.
Why? I mean, again, he's putting it in context. And again, you do not want to make conjectures, of course. You don't want to blame anybody for anything. You don't even want to say it's arson when you don't know. Nobody knows. And again, they're investigating right now. But since when? Since when does this kind of silence, this kind of pall of silence, since when is such a pall of silence imposed willingly on journalists? When do journalists not speculate? When do they not go after investigators? So let's talk about the context that these two guys were trying to put this in when they were cut off. But first, let us talk about ZipRecruiter. You know, you want to hire good people. You don't want your place run like the Daily Wire, where you've got guys like Knowles running around like a crazy man getting sprayed and things like that. No, go to ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter sends your job to over 100 of the web's leading job boards. And they don't stop there with their powerful matching technology. ZipRecruiter scans thousands of resumes to find people with the right experience and invite them to apply for your job. It actually goes out and gets the people for you, or helps get the people for you. As applications come in, ZipRecruiter analyzes each one, spotlights the top candidates, so you never miss a great match. ZipRecruiter is so effective that 4 out of 5 of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. Right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's pretty inexpensive, for free at this exclusive web address. That's ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire, which is all one word, DAILYWIRE. ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. So what are they talking about? You have not heard anything about this probably in American media. This is the other thing that gets me. It's not as if, oh, yes, this has been all over the news, and what Shep and Neil Cavuto are saying is, yeah, we don't want to put that in this context. Nobody knows that this is going on, all right? So here, hunted down by yours truly on the internet, the Religion News Service. The Religion News Service runs this. Sometimes it's a cross of human excrement smeared on a church wall with a stolen communion host stuck at the 4 corners. Other times, a statue of the Virgin Mary lies shattered on the floor. Now and then, a fire breaks out in a house of prayer. Roman Catholic churches have increasingly come under attack in France, a country so long identified with Christianity that it used to be called the eldest daughter of the church. A recent fire, that's one of the people we're talking about, at Saint Sulpice, the second largest church in Paris, has shed light on a trend that has become commonplace in many smaller towns. These incidents get a brief mention in the press, complete with quotes from Catholics shocked at the sight of beheaded statues, scattered hosts, and sometimes a short video clip on national television. That's over there, but over here, you get nothing. Here's another piece from Breitbart, the Catholic hierarchy. This was linked to on CNN's religion site. The Catholic hierarchy is kept silent about the episodes, limiting themselves to highlighting the anti-Christian threat and expressing hope that politicians and police will get to the bottom of the crime. Reports indicate that 80% of the desecration of places of worship in France concerns Christian churches, and in the year 2018, this meant the profanation of an average of 2 Christian churches per day in France, even though these actions rarely make the headlines. And when you say rarely, they never make them headlines over here. The Vienna-based Observatory of Intolerance and Discrimination Against Christians in Europe, which was founded in cooperation with the Council of European Bishops' Conference, but is now independent, said there'd been a 25% increase in attacks on Catholic churches in the first 2 months of this year compared with the same time last year. The executive director, Ellen Fantini, told Newsweek, this is a Newsweek piece, that while in many cases the motive for the attacks was not known, France faced growing problems with anti-Christian violence, especially by anarchist and feminist groups. And then there's this, and this is from an Israeli paper. Just 3 days ago, a jihadi terrorist woman was sentenced to 8 years in prison by a French court for involvement in a foiled plot in 2016 to blow up the Notre Dame Cathedral with a car packed with gas canisters. That was 3 days before Notre Dame went up in flames. But it's like, faulty towers. We're not going to mention this. We're not going to mention any of this because we don't want anything. Look, it's obvious. It is obvious. Everyone is afraid that there might be Muslims involved. Believe me, I'm not saying there are. I am not in any way implying or hinting or trying to wink at you and say that there are. But that's what everybody's afraid of. That's why this kind of self-righteous, let's not talk about the war, let's not talk about the causes. That's what's going on. I'm not saying in any way that they are responsible or that it's arson. I'm simply saying it's weird. It is weird when reporters don't speculate, when they don't ask about the causes. A lot of the stories, like in Reuters and the New York Times, they didn't even talk about the investigation. They said, oh, well, they ruled out arson. I don't think they can have ruled it out that fast. All I'm saying is they were afraid that someone would connect this to Muslims or Islamists, I should say, and that there would be reprisals. And the thing is, it misses the point, because what happens when you don't say something? Does it go away? Does nobody think it? No, it rattles around in your head all the louder. It rattles around in your head all the louder, and especially because even at the worst, France is not suffering from Islamism. It's not suffering from Islamic terror. That terror has moved into a gap, the gap where Christianity used to be. Okay, that is the problem in France and in Europe in general, is that Christianity has moved out and something is going to move in. And that's what Douglas Murray was talking about in The Strange Death in Europe. When people convert to Islam, it's because it's the only thing on offer, because Christianity has lost its mojo, its confidence, and its belief. I have an article coming out in City Journal soon called Can We Believe? About this phenomenon of people calling for Christian belief, saying the society cannot sustain itself without the Christian belief that made it what it is. There's a lot of people on the right too who get very angry at me when I talk about this, as if somehow Western civilization, which began by being called Christendom, was somehow disconnected. We can disconnect it from this. Let's talk about the connection between the Constitution, the Declaration, and the Christian thought that formed the civilization that brought those things into being. It doesn't matter whether Jefferson believed or not. That's not the point. The point is everything in his brain, everything in his attitude was shaped by the Christian society that raised him and brought him into being, and all of us, even today, that brings us into being. You remove that bottom stone in the Jenga tower, and maybe everything falls down. And the thing is, what's difficult about it is you cannot just believe because you think it'll save Western civilization. You can't believe because you think it'll be happier, make you happier. You can only believe if you believe. And there is a great movement, and has been for a long time, militating against that. And I get these letters from people who sound like they think they are at the pinnacle of human evolution by denying the existence of God, by denying the truth of Christianity. And I just don't think they've thought it through. I really do not. I mean, I was 49 when I was baptized. I spent a lot of time thinking about the various possibilities. I think I've thought a lot of these dead ends through. I've gone down a lot of dead ends. And I think I've talked about before the Enlightenment narrative, this narrative that started immediately with the Renaissance. At the very start of the Renaissance, they started talking about the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages. Remember, the people who lived in the Middle Ages didn't think they were in the middle of anything. They thought they were right at the edge of time, because they were, right? It became the Middle Ages during the Renaissance. Also a propaganda word, the Renaissance, meaning rebirth, when what the narrative they were telling is that first there were the classical societies, then there was the darkness, the middleness of Catholic life in medieval England, and then there was the rebirth, the Enlightenment, the light shed on everybody. And that, of course, was when science came along, Newton transformed everything. And so we move away from the Catholic Church, we move away from Christianity into a world of science, where finally we learn that everything is made of material, and it's just one big machine that's going on. And my problem with this is that I believe the narrative was propaganda, some of the most successful propaganda in history. I believe it's obsolete, and I don't believe it made sense even then. Every single person who started the scientific revolution was a member of the church, whether Galileo, Newton, all the people going back, Francis, I can't remember his name, Bacon, going back to Francis Bacon, they were all members of the church, which hints to me, suggests to me that it was Christian thought, the Christian mind that discovered science, the Christian way of thinking, the trust that God made sense, that God made a world that made sense, that he made a mind that connected to the world that made sense. And the idea that the science would reveal a clockwork universe is itself obsolete. The quantum mechanics of the current day really gives a role to consciousness in creating reality, which leads me to think that, hey, maybe a consciousness created reality in the first place. Plus, the absolute unbelievable unlikeliness that this world could exist and that we would be able to understand it if it just happened accidentally. They say that the odds of that happening are like a wind blowing through a junkyard and assembling a 747. Those are the same odds. And so they pose this thing. They make up this thing, the multiverse. I'm called king of the multiverse for good reason, because I am. But they call it the multiverse. And the idea is we just happen to live in that one universe that makes sense, that we can understand. And all the other universes, it doesn't, which is like saying, I drew a straight flush in this poker game 5 times in a row because this just happens to be the poker game of all poker games in which I do that. If I said that, somebody would shoot me. The next thing you would hear would be a gunshot. But still, they do this to support the idea that there is no God because they cannot accept God as an explanation for anything. All I'm saying is, I believe in God because I believe it to be true. I believe in Christianity because I believe it to be true. When you see that church gutted, we all know what we were seeing. We all know we were seeing a symbol for a civilization that has lost that faith, and no civilization survives the death of its gods. No civilization has ever survived the death of its gods, and this one won't either. Talking about the way in which people think once they lose God. You talk about materialism, and one of the biggest symptoms of materialism is socialism. Atheism, basically, socialism says all your problems can be solved by money. All I got to do is redistribute the money. Take your money, give it to the other guy, then everything will be fine. Why does it always come a cropper? It always comes a cropper because money is just a symbol of your work and your ambition and your desire and your charity. And when you take it away from people, you're taking away from them something of value. And when you give it to someone else, you're giving him essentially nothing. Bernie Sanders was on Fox yesterday, and I admire Sanders for doing this. Bernie Sanders has now taken the lead in a lot of Democrat polls, and the Democrats are incredibly flustered by this. I mean, they're talking about how can we get at Bernie? It's really hard because they got at Bernie last time, and it only burnishes his image as an outsider for them to attack him, and yet they want to stop him. Let me take a pause here to do one more commercial, a commercial that is one after my own heart, because it is for honey. I use honey all the time. It is so easy. It goes on your computer. It operates in the background. I do most of my shopping on Amazon. I buy a lot of books. What honey does is it searches for coupons, deals, other vendors that might sell you something cheaper. And it'll just pop up and say, hello, I can save you money. And who doesn't want that? Honey has saved 10 million members an average of $28. It saved me more than that. It has saved me a lot more than that because I buy books and it tells me where I can get them cheaper. Honey members have already saved more than $800 million altogether. I haven't saved quite that much on my own, but it's just great. I mean, it's easy to load. It works really well. It works behind the science, and it is free. You're not paying anything. There's really no reason not to use Honey. It's free to use, easy to install on your computer in just 2 clicks. Shop with confidence. Get Honey for free at joinhoney.com/Andrew. That's join, Join, joinhoney.com/Andrew. Honey is the smart shopping assistant that saves you time and money when you're shopping online. So, like I said, Sanders did one of these town halls, and I didn't like the town hall that much. I admired Sanders for going on Fox. It was a good move, a smart move. They packed the audience with Bernie supporters. So it was kind of like these, instead of having, Brett Baer and Martha McCallum just question him, it was like they were questioning him in an onslaught of boos and applause, which I just hate. It doesn't mean anything. When somebody applauds for you, that really doesn't mean that you've said anything true, but it sounds like you're getting all the support. And I was really struck by this one woman who stood up and asked a question. Let's see if her name was Kathy Harrington. Listen to her question.
Our question question comes from Kathy Harrington. Kathy, what's your question for Senator Sanders?
Hi, Senator Sanders. Welcome to the Lehigh Valley. So my question is, the definition of socialism is just a society agreeing to work together and combining their resources to make sure everyone is protected and taken care of. How can you challenge the idea that socialism is bad in the minds of the public?
Now, I don't want to pick on this lady. She's just a lady, asking a question, and she's obviously a Bernie supporter. But that's not what socialism is. It leaves out the question of force, which is just idealism taken to the point of naivete. It's not that we all agree to work together. It's that you agree to work together and then you come and take my stuff. It's that you force me to do what you want me to do. You say that my work, the fruits of my labor, belong to you to redistribute. We're not all working together. That's called charity. Charity is when you get together with people by agreement and you all agree, oh, we're going to give some money to this other person. And that's ennobling. That ennobles you. It creates a sense of responsibility in the person who receives the money. But this materialist mindset, there's no question of your will. There's no idea of your will. We're just agreeing to work together. Oh, and if you don't, you're under arrest. They've lost the sense of the human will, of the free will that makes people do what they do, choose the things that they do. And it's an idea that can only be supported by those people who believe in God. I mean, that is really true, because you have to understand that the person you are is just represented by your body. It is not your body. So the other thing about Bernie, he did a good job. I'm sure he won some votes. I'm sure he'll do well. It was a smart thing to do. But everything about him, as far as I'm concerned, is just dishonest. I mean, every word that comes out of his mouth is he's avoiding things. He's hypocritical. At one point, Brett Baier asked him, about taxes. Why don't you, if you want to pay higher taxes, why don't you? Let's cut 5.
Your taxes do show that you're a millionaire. You did make $1 million in 2016, 2017. You're right, the 561 in 2018. But your marginal tax rate was 26% because of President Trump's tax cuts. So why not say, I'm leading this revolution. I'm not going to take those.
Come on, we're doing. I paid the taxes that I owe. And by the way, why don't you get Donald Trump up here and ask him how much he pays in taxes?
We will.
Yeah, well, look. Well, I am eagerly awaiting your doing that.
Well, we'd love to have
you. We would love to have that question.
Get him up here. And if the president, I guess the president watches your network a little bit, right? Hey, President Trump, my wife and I just released 10 years. Please do the same. Let the American people know how much money you make.
All right.
It's not an answer. That's not an answer. He was asked a question. Why did you take Donald Trump's tax cut when you've been vilifying it and saying it shouldn't be there in the first place? You can pay as much taxes as you want. He didn't answer the question. There was something just dishonest about him that really gets at me, because he's a true believer. I believe he believes that what he's saying, but he's never apologized for honeymooning in the Soviet Union. It was a slave state. My friend Roger Simon writes a piece in PJ Media. He was there at almost the exact same time, like a year earlier, and he said people were begging him to help him get out. And Roger was also a socialist, and he said, oh, I made a mistake. He changed his mind. Why didn't Bernie? Instead, he took his shirt off and was dancing around singing, "This land is your land. This land is mine." There's just something dishonest about this guy. Now, I don't know how he's going to do on a debate stage with Donald Trump. They're both so out there that I'm not sure which one of them will come out on top. But they talk about how dishonest Trump is, but Trump is like a carny barker. He basically tells the truth, except he exaggerates everything. Bernie, everything he says is hypocrisy. Everything he says, it just does not hold together. And I think, let me just play one more cut. They asked him about charitable giving on his tax returns. This is cut number 6.
Last question on this. A lot of millionaires and billionaires give a ton to charity. You gave 3.4%.
Yeah. My wife and I do give money to charity. All right. And we're proud to do what we did. There are others. You're quite right. There are people. Gates Foundation do a phenomenal job. We do what we do.
I mean, again, it's like it's taking away the power of charity, the power of free will. It's this materialism. It is what I saw represented by Notre Dame burning. It's what I saw being silenced by the press, nobody wanting to ask, Why is this happening? Is this part of the continued desecration of churches? Why haven't you reported on the desecration of churches? Even if it's not part of that desecration, why haven't you reported it? Why are you silencing people now? I mean, it's really an interesting moment in our society when reporters who are supposed to expose things instead cover them up, like they cover up the malfeasance of our security forces during this FBI investigation, the Russia investigation into Donald Trump. It is an amazing thing when elites have turned against the people so much that they want to support this incredible power structure instead of do what they're there for, which is examine that power structure to its bones all the time. It is just amazing to me to watch the press basically abscond, disappear on its duties. All right. We have a guest coming up, Paul Ray, a fine scholar from Hillsdale University, historian. But we got to say goodbye to Facebook and YouTube. You want to come to dailywire.com and subscribe so you can be in the mailbag tomorrow. You know the drill. Go to dailywire.com, hit podcast, hit the Andrew Klavan podcast. There is a little mailbag symbol. Press that, ask any question you want, answers guaranteed, 100% correct. They will change your life, if only by the fact that you have to subscribe for a lousy $10 a month, $100 for the year. So at least it will change your life by taking your money. Come on over to dailywire.com.